Hi everyone, good evening. How are you? Good? Happy? Ready for a beer? I'll keep it short. First of all, who has ever seen an anthropologist walking around in the wild? Just, can I see some hands? Then I have some idea. I see like a lot of light and a couple of hands. Okay, so when I tell you I'm an anthropologist, what's your first thought? What do you think? And just shout. Friends? People? Culture? You're all right. What else? Research. And also like the not nice things, right? The boring things. It's all true. It's all true. And there's another story. So I'm happy to be allowed on this stage. So thank you for it and to tell you my story. In 2010, I was doing my master's research and I thought, well, where to go in the big, wide open world? Where should I go? And I thought, well, let's go to a place that's literally a white piece on the map. I went to Greenland. And I thought, what happens on Greenland? Do they even have bars on Greenland? I didn't know. I really didn't know. They did. But I wasn't there for the bars. I was there to do research on climate change because I thought, where else in the world can you see climate change happening in front of you? So I went to Greenland. And I spent 3 months there and I talked to numerous people. I talked to many fishermen. I talked to captains of industry. I talked to scientists. And everything was on the impact of climate change on society. And society there really is, well, defined almost by fishermen and the fisheries, because it's super dependent on the ecosystem and its fisheries. I also was supposed to talk with the Secretary of Finance, but I didn't know I had an appointment with him, so I let him waiting. I missed an opportunity there. However, I talked to many people and I talked to many fishermen and I have seen many tears because the people told me because of climate change the fish moved up north because the temperature increased and thus the temperature zones for the fish also moved up north. So what happened was that the small fishermen in their small open boats every day they went out to sea and they had to go up farther north. And you could say, well, just a couple of kilometers, but it was quite far, actually. And there was a lot of risk involved, and there was a lot of money involved for the fuel, and it took more time. So I talked to many fishermen, and they said, well, with tears in their eyes, they said, I don't know how I can provide for my family from September onwards, because I just don't have the money to buy petrol anymore. I talked to fishermen or to their families who told me, well, because the ice is unstable, every now and then, once every year, or once every couple of years, a fisherman just disappears under the ice and leaves behind a family and a community in grief, but also in economic problems. So I talked to many people and I saw the impact, the social impact of climate change. And, well, you could say, well, that's just the Arctic, you know, that's just Greenland, it's far away, we're in Holland, so we're safe, right? Well, we're not. I guess most of us knows. But I came to realize climate change looks differently all over the world. So in Greenland, it looks like melting ice and fish stocks that move up north. In Bangladesh, it looks like sea level rise. In Tuvalu, it looks like sea level rise. In Holland as well, actually. In the USA, it looks like superstorms. In South Africa, Cape Town last year, it was super dry, so you couldn't use water anymore. So climate change looks differently all over the world. And yet it has similar consequences and similar effects because it has a fundamental disintegrating effect on society because you can't live the way you lived anymore. That's intense to realize. So I left Greenland and I came home and I thought, what happened? So I was enchanted by the beauty of it. It's a wonderful place. The color, the light, it's really enchanting. And I was also in shock of what was happening in the world. I was in shock. And I still am, 9 years later, so I still am a little bit in shock. It's getting less every day or more. It depends on what's in the newspapers. But it looks differently all over. That's the lesson. So you could ask yourself, what to do. What to do. Because if we don't do anything, if we don't take action, then probably the pollution, the global warming, deforestation, desertification, all those things will make the planet, well, less nice and big parts of it uninhabitable just in, let's say, a generation or something. So what world are we giving to our children? That's the question. So I started working as a consultant and an anthropologist, which was a funny combination within companies on culture and sustainability. And I thought the approach we take on solving the problems, like Greta Thunberg, the Swedish teenager and climate activist right now in New York, she says our house is on fire. So the solutions we find on putting out the fire, they're mostly technological. And we are innovating our way out of this shit. And we're trying to build new business cases. And we wonder if there's a business case for keeping the planet livable, which is an absurd question, right? It's an absurd question. So I think all those technological innovations, all those business case innovations, they won't help unless we change ourselves. And that's a big thing. That's a big thing. So there was the joke you already made, like I'm not sustainable at all. Well, I'm guilty as charged as well, because I also take the plane sometimes. I'm not a saint. I'm not a saint. But I think we need to change ourselves. And I think we need a different mindset. We need to change our behavior. And I also think we need to do that in a collective way. So if it's just me who's going to do it, or just you, the world is not going to change. Everybody needs to put in his effort and his time. So I think we need culture change. And the funny thing is, I'm an anthropologist, so I realized 5 years later that the sustainability challenge is all about culture. Well, it took me 5 years, so now within 5 minutes, that's like the shortcut. But I think we need to reassess and revisit the cultural assumptions of what it means to live in those worlds and what it means to live in this society and what it means to work the way we do, eat the things we do, buy the stuff we do, travel the way we do, all those things. And that's hard labor, I know. I know very well. But I think we really need to do that. So you might wonder, like, I mean, culture. Everybody talks about culture all the time, and there's cultural problems and issues and whatnot. So there's been written libraries on culture. So what's culture anyway, right? And I think a sort of a small, short definition is that culture is a unique answer to a universal set of questions that every group, every social group, whether it's a team or a company or an organization or an entire society, every group has to answer those questions about culture. And it's questions about what do we believe in? What do we think is true and what do we believe is not true? What's beautiful and what's not beautiful? What's ugly? What's right? What's the right behavior and what's not right behavior? So if I come into a room and I start introducing myself, I think it's normal to shake hands. But there's places in the world where it's not normal. And there's places where you think, well, I don't know the cultural rules here. And I think, as a society, we need to rewrite those unwritten rules. And we need to revisit the cultural assumptions that are underlying the way we live and the way we work and the way we eat and we do all those things. So, if you say that's culture, culture is a unique answer to universal questions, and every group gives a different answer. There's no right and wrong answer, it's just different answers. But I think we need to reassess our own answers to that. And that's hard labor, that's intense, and it's about all the small choices we make every day. And it's also about the big choices we make. I think what we need is to revisit those assumptions, and we need more rebels. We need people, I hope all of you will go home and start rebelling. We need people to challenge the ways we think, the ways we live, the ways our companies and our organizations are organized, the way we buy our stuff, the way we sell our stuff, the things we drink, the things we eat, the way we travel. I think we need rebels, people like you and me, who start asking those questions and who start challenging the status quo within our companies, within our organizations, within our volunteering clubs, everywhere we are, because we are highly social beings. So the great thing is, we can start today. It's quite easy. It's hard, and it's easy at the same time. We can start today. If you go home and you meet your partner, or your kid, or your parent, or your friend, or anyone, or you come home into your company tomorrow, you can start asking those questions. You can spark the dialogue on what does it mean to give the world to the next generation. And I came across a wonderful story of Hawaii. And the story is like this. If they make decisions that are important, like not the small things, but like the important decisions, they take into consideration the effects of that decision on the next 9 generations. So that's a different timescale than the next quarterly business report or the next 4-year election, right? So imagine 9 generations ahead. And I looked it up. 1 generation is approximately 15 years. So this means about 135 years looking into the future, which is almost impossible. But I think if we start doing that just a little bit, we will start making different choices. So I came here. I live in Utrecht. I came here today. I live in the north of Utrecht, close to Amsterdam. I thought, well, by car it takes me just half an hour. And by train it takes me about an hour. But I thought, okay, it's a small decision and yet a big decision. So I took the train and I walked, and now I'm here. So I think in those everyday small and big decisions, we can make a difference and we can start building this green future. And I think we need more rebels and we need more people like you and like me and like everyone you are connected with. We are all connected, we're all social beings. To start that movement and to start that change and to bring that change into companies, organizations, societies you work in. So that's the story I want to tell, and that's the need I want to drop, so you already know this need. And I think we need to rewrite the unwritten cultural code. That's what we need to do. And in order to do that, we have to start having dialogue, conversations, start making different choices. So thank you for hearing my story, and I hope you will all become or keep being the rebel that's inside you. Thank you very much.